Today's video is following on from the original motion graphs video. This time we're going to look at the areas of motion graphs and what those quantities represent. So we have already covered the slopes, and we know what each of the slopes or gradients of distance time, displacement time, velocity time, acceleration time represent. Now we're going to look at areas. Before we do that, we need to do a small little bit of geometry. The vast majority of the shapes we're going to come across are either triangles or they're rectangles. So if you want to find the area of a triangle, it is half the base of the triangle times the height. And we try to make it as simple as possible. We want to have right-angled triangles, so we would work with this side over here. Rather than the full thing, we would divide that full pink triangle into two sections and work on half base times height. The area of a rectangle then is just base times height. And with this, you can pretty much do any area calculation. Let's start with the first of our graphs, this one here. Again, like I've said to you before, you must always look what's on the axes. So we've got time on the x-axis. So that's going to represent our base in these calculations. And it is velocity on the y-axis, and that's going to represent our height. What we are doing when we calculate an area is we are finding basically how much is under the graph. And so we're going to be multiplying half base times height or base times height, depending on whether it's a triangle or it's some form of rectangle. That means, if we look at the base is in seconds, and the height here is in meters per second. Because this is a velocity time graph. And of course your seconds are going to cancel out, and you're going to end up with a value in meters. What that tells us is that when you find the area under a velocity time graph, what you are getting is a quantity measured in meters, and therefore you are getting the displacement. Remember, displacement is distance with a direction attached. So let's then do some calculations to work out, if this is an object traveling A, B, C, D, and E, how far has that object traveled? We know that because this is a velocity time graph and it doesn't pass through the x-axis, that all of this displacement will be in the same direction. Okay, as an example, let's do part A. So we know that A is a triangle and it's half base times height. Since we'll leave the half there, since our base is 2 seconds and our height is 4 meters per second, that's a fairly simple calculation. That's going to be 4 meters. So that's how you do the triangle one. For B, again, it's fairly straightforward. With B, it's just going to be a rectangle, so it's base times height. And that will be 4 meters per second times 2 seconds, which will give us 8 meters. It's slightly different when you come to a part like C and D, for example. So C is made up of 2 parts. It is a triangle there, very roughly drawn, and a rectangle here. So you'd need to find the area of the rectangle and the area of the triangle and add them together. And generally what you're doing with graphs like this is that you're finding the total distance traveled by the object. And you just keep calculating for every section of it, keep calculating what that area is going to be, and then add them all up at the end. And if you do that, you should get a distance of 124 meters altogether. So that's the first one. That's fairly straightforward, divided up into its sections. Here we have example number 2. And for this one, you can see that it does pass through the x-axis. So we know that this object was traveling in one direction first, and then stopped momentarily, that's when it had 0 meters per second, and then traveled in the opposite direction, which is what our negative means. So if we divide this into parts A and part B, and apply our geometry equations to them, so A, it's obviously a triangle, is half base times height, and that will be a half of, let's call it 4.75 times 6, giving us a distance of 14.25 meters. If we do part B, you will see that you're doing exactly the same thing, except in this situation, it's still the same amount of time, 4.75 seconds. And this time it's minus 6, so you end up with minus 14.25 meters, which means that the total displacement traveled by the object here is 0 meters. Because again, this is a velocity time graph, so the area, when you multiply velocity times time, is going to give you displacement. And what this is telling you is the object started at a speed of 6 meters per second, was slowing down, and then went backwards at 6 meters per second. It went back to where it started. And when you do these calculations correctly and watch your signs, you need to trust what the answer gives you at the end. Your total displacement from your starting point here was 0. You can apply this principle to all kinds of graphs. All you have to do, like I've said before, is look at what's on your x and y axis and think to yourself, if I multiply these things by each other, if I multiply velocity times time, I'm going to get displacement. So you just apply the same thing. You divide it up into its sections, A, B, C, and D. You could even do E, and then figure out half base times height for each one of these. So as an example, for A, the half base times height is half times 1 second times 10 meters per second, which of course gives you 5 meters. And you just keep doing that, remembering of course to include the negatives if you want to have the total displacement at the end. If you just want to have its displacement in the first second, well, there you have it, 5 meters. What do you do when it's a curve? This is where it gets slightly tricky, or at least long-winded. Mathematicians will know that there are ways, of course, of finding areas under the curve, but we don't need to be able to do that at A-level physics. So it doesn't come up very often, but it has come up. What you need to be able to do is you have to be able to find out how many of these small squares there are underneath this curve. If you find the area of each of the squares, and here the area would be 0.25 seconds, times 2 meters per second, giving you an area of 0.5 meters. Then you're figuring out how many of these squares and multiplying it by 0.5 meters. Now there are shortcuts to doing this. So you can, for example, go, all right, that is, and we'll say it stops there, one big set of squares. There's a second fairly big set of squares. And there's another one, and you can count the squares in those, multiply them by 0.5, and then you end up just counting the half squares. Now, with half squares, what you try and do is you would say, okay, that plus that is 1 square. So you have to sort of balance the squares that are cut off with a small bit with the squares that are cut off a big bit and count them as 1 square. All questions will say, estimate the displacement of the object traveling under this motion. If you go ahead and do it, you can pause the video, do the counting up, you should find that you have 69 squares. Or thereabouts. Again, it's going to be an estimate depending on the judgments that you made at these corners, and therefore giving you a distance of 34.5 meters. What about acceleration time graphs? Again, you keep an eye on what's here. Acceleration times time is going to give you velocity, because we know that acceleration is the change in velocity over time. So if you cross multiply there, you're going to get the change in velocity is given by acceleration times time. And so what the area under our graph here is going to give you how much the velocity has changed in that time. And usually, for example, on this one, that will then give you the final velocity of the object. So again, mark it out A and B for the ease of calculation. A is obviously going to be 6 meters per second squared times 3 seconds, which gives you 18 meters per second. And that would be your final velocity, or your change in velocity over the entire period. And down here, we've got the same values for our base and height, So we're going to get minus 18 meters per second, which means that the object has sped up to 18 meters per second, traveled at 18 meters per second for 4 seconds, and then slowed down to 0 again. And again, if your acceleration time graph is a curve, you have to start counting the squares under the curve. What they would generally do is say to you, calculate the velocity of the object after 2 seconds. So at that point, you would be calculating the area under the curve up to 2 seconds, because that's going to give you the change in velocity from 0 up to 2 seconds. If there's an initial velocity, you then have to add that to the initial velocity, because remember, this is telling you the change. If the object is starting at 0, then your change in velocity will be equal to your final velocity. But if the object is not starting at 0, if the object has had a velocity before this, and then accelerates according to this line, then you would have to add your change in velocity from here onto its original initial velocity. Now if we go back to our specification points, what we should be able to see here is, in the last video, we did drawing and interpreting displacement time and velocity time graphs. And in this video, or this part of the video, we have talked about what the area of displacement time, that's nothing. That gives you nothing because meters times seconds doesn't give you a quantity that we deal with. The area of velocity time gives you displacement, and the area of acceleration time gives you the change in velocity.